Have you ever stopped to consider who you really are? I mean, really think about it. Is the person you see in the mirror the real you? Or are you living under the influence of a version of yourself that's been shaped by society, your upbringing, and external expectations? Today, we are going to dive deep into one of the most profound psychological journeys there is, the journey of self-discovery, as explored by one of the most brilliant minds in psychology, Carl Jung. And let me tell you, this journey is not just about finding answers. It's about discovering how truly vast and limitless you are. Imagine for a moment, if you could shatter the illusion of the fixed self. What if the person you think you are isn't the full picture? What if you could break free from the masks you've been wearing for years and finally get in touch with the authentic you? What if I told you that beneath all those layers of roles you play, there's an infinite potential waiting to be unlocked? Sounds intriguing, right? But here's the thing: this process requires courage. Courage to face the parts of ourselves we've been avoiding, the parts we've built our identities around. It requires the bravery to confront not just our strengths, but our weaknesses, our fears, and the parts of us that we think are unworthy. Carl Jung said it best: "You are not what you think you are." And it's this journey that we're about to embark on today. I promise, by the end of this video, you'll see yourself in a whole new light, and that's just the beginning. But before we dive into this life-changing exploration, I want to take a moment to remind you to like this video if you're excited to explore the depths of your true self. Share it with your friends who may be on a similar journey. And subscribe to our channel to keep up with all the incredible content that will help you on your path to self-discovery. And if you feel moved by what you hear today, please consider showing your support through a super thanks, which helps us continue creating content that inspires and transforms. Now, let's get started. Imagine waking up one morning to a realization so unsettling that it shakes the very foundation of who you are. You look at the life you've been leading, the choices you've made, the beliefs you've held, and the desires that have driven you, and you wonder, is this really me? What if the life you've been living has not been entirely your own? What if your deepest motivations, your very sense of self, have been shaped not by your own inner voice, but by the expectations of society, family, and countless other external forces? You might start to question how much of your identity is a true reflection of who you truly are, and how much of it is merely a mask that you've created to conform, to survive, or to be accepted in a world that demands compliance. It's a disorienting thought. Are we really who we think we are? Or is our identity an illusion crafted from the influences around us? Carl Jung, a pioneering psychologist, delves into this very question with one of his most compelling insights. Life truly begins when you find yourself. It sounds profound, doesn't it? But what does it mean to find yourself? Is it merely about becoming self-aware, or does it involve a deeper, more transformative process? To Jung, the journey of self-discovery isn't just about recognizing what we like, what we do, or even how we think. It's about breaking free from layers of conditioning and finding the authentic self beneath it all. The real challenge, however, is that most people never embark on this journey. They remain trapped in a version of themselves built from external influences, living according to a script written by others, and never questioning whether the life they're living is truly their own. In modern life, many people drift through existence feeling disconnected from their true selves, lost in a maze of societal roles and responsibilities, never fully understanding why they feel a sense of emptiness. They seek validation from the world, believing that happiness can be found in success, acceptance, and external approval. Yet, despite all of these external achievements, there remains a quiet dissatisfaction, an inner unrest that whispers, "This isn't enough. There must be something more." This sense of being incomplete is often what drives people to look deeper, to question not just their circumstances, but their very essence. Jung argued that this is the point at which life can truly begin, when you stop living according to others' expectations and start living according to your own authentic desires, aspirations, and truths. Most people never experience this kind of awakening because they remain in the safe confines of a life dictated by external forces. From the moment we are born, we are conditioned. We inherit identities, roles, and expectations, most of which we accept without question. We are taught to conform, to fit in, and to adapt to the world around us. As children, we express ourselves freely, showing our emotions and desires. But often these expressions are met with disapproval. We're told to be realistic, to stop being too sensitive, or to suppress certain desires or feelings that society deems inappropriate. Over time, we learn to hide parts of ourselves that don't align with the expectations placed upon us. These suppressed aspects of our personality are often relegated to the unconscious mind, creating a hidden inner world. Jung identified this hidden self as the shadow. The shadow represents everything about us that we deny, reject, or are unable to accept. It encompasses our fears, vulnerabilities, unacknowledged desires, and even untapped potential. However, the shadow doesn't simply disappear because we refuse to acknowledge it. Instead, it operates beneath the surface, subtly influencing our behaviors, thoughts, and emotional reactions in ways we're often unaware of. Have you ever been triggered by someone's behavior and felt a strong emotional reaction without fully understanding why? Or perhaps you've felt inexplicably drawn to certain people or situations. Jung believed these emotional responses often stem from projections our shadow selves manifested in others. When we dislike certain traits in others, it is often because we are actually rejecting those very traits within ourselves. The challenge is that most people continue to suppress these elements, believing that by doing so, they can avoid discomfort or potential harm. But Jung argued that the path to true psychological growth requires us to confront and integrate these shadow aspects. The process of individuation, the journey toward becoming our most authentic self, demands that we face our shadow, understand its impact on our lives, and embrace it as a vital part of who we are. Rather than seeing our shadow as an enemy, we must view it as a key to unlocking personal power, authenticity, and freedom. For most, this process is uncomfortable. It demands vulnerability and self-reflection, which many people avoid at all costs. How many times do we distract ourselves with work, social media, or entertainment to avoid confronting difficult emotions or questions about ourselves? This constant distraction serves as a defense mechanism, an unconscious way of avoiding the deeper questions that linger beneath the surface. But as Jung pointed out, the unconscious mind doesn't simply go away. It continues to influence our lives through anxiety, self-sabotage, unfulfilling relationships, and a sense of being lost in the world. One of the most striking examples Jung gave of this unconscious influence is the fear of rejection. Many people live in constant fear of being judged, criticized, or abandoned. They seek approval, avoid conflict, and suppress their true thoughts in an effort to maintain social harmony. But where does this fear of rejection come from? Is it really about other people's opinions? Or is it connected to deeper, unresolved emotional wounds, perhaps from childhood, past relationships, or unhealed trauma? Jung would argue that these fears are often not just emotions, but projections of our shadow selves, hidden aspects of ourselves that have yet to be integrated. When we begin to pay attention to our fears, emotional reactions, and the patterns in our lives, we begin to see how our deepest wounds shape our choices and behaviors. Consider, for instance, the feeling of inadequacy many people experience in social settings. A person might avoid certain situations, convinced that they are not enough, or that they won't be accepted. However, when we take a step back and examine this feeling, we might discover that it stems from a much earlier experience, perhaps an episode in childhood where they felt unseen or unworthy. Jung believed that until these fears are acknowledged and understood, they will continue to control us from the unconscious. The path to individuation is not easy, but it is profoundly liberating. When we finally face our shadows, we begin to strip away the layers of false identity and self-imposed limitations that have kept us trapped in a version of ourselves that is not true. We gain a sense of empowerment and freedom that allows us to live more authentically, without the need for external validation or approval. The journey toward self-discovery is not about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more fully ourselves. Jung's theory of individuation emphasizes the integration of all aspects of the self, the good, the bad, the light, and the dark. As we embrace the totality of who we are, we begin to uncover untapped potential and strengths we never knew existed. And by doing so, we free ourselves from the constraints imposed by societal expectations, familial pressures, and our own fears and insecurities. This journey of self-discovery also leads us to Jung's concept of archetypes. Archetypes are universal patterns or blueprints that shape our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. They exist in the collective unconscious, an area of the psyche shared by all humans. Shaped by the experiences of our ancestors, these archetypes are not just abstract concepts, they are alive within each of us, influencing our actions and choices every day. They include archetypes like the hero, the shadow, the wise mentor, and the innocent child. Jung believed that these archetypes shape our personal identities and our relationships with others. For instance, the hero archetype represents the part of us that longs for purpose and meaning. It is the driving force behind our desire to overcome obstacles, grow, and achieve our highest potential. But the hero cannot exist without its counterpart, the shadow. The hero must confront the shadow in order to transform. Jung believed that the true transformation occurs not when we reject or suppress the shadow, but when we integrate it. This battle between the hero and the shadow plays out in our lives more often than we realize. Consider the moments when we feel the pull to change, to step into a better version of ourselves, only to be held back by doubt, fear, or self-sabotage. These moments are often the result of the tension between the hero and the shadow. The key to transformation lies in confronting and understanding this internal conflict, rather than trying to eliminate it. Only by embracing both sides of ourselves, our strengths and our weaknesses, can we evolve into our truest selves. Jung's teachings on individuation, shadow integration, and archetypes offer profound insights into the human experience. However, the most significant insight Jung provided is the realization that our true self is not fixed, but ever-changing. The ego, the part of our mind that defines who we think we are, creates the illusion of a static self. But in reality, we are not limited to the identity we have constructed. Our self is fluid, dynamic, and expansive. To find ourselves, we must break free from the ego's limitations and embrace the infinite possibilities that lie within us. This is the essence of Jung's message. Life begins when you find yourself. It's not about building a new identity or creating a new persona. It's about uncovering the identity that has always been there, beneath the layers of conditioning, fear, and societal expectations. By embracing our full, authentic selves, we can step into a life that is truly ours, a life that is aligned with our deepest truths, desires, and potential. And in doing so, we become not just who we were meant to be, but who we are meant to become. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, is regarded as one of the most influential thinkers in the realm of psychology, particularly for his exploration of the unconscious mind. While many of his contemporaries focused on the conscious aspects of mental health and behavior, Jung took a much deeper dive, examining what he called the depths of the human psyche. He didn't simply consider the mind in terms of aligning with societal norms or seeking simple mental well-being. Instead, he introduced a concept that would change the way people view themselves and their paths in life: individuation. This process, as Jung described it, involves becoming your true, authentic self, a state of integration between the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche. At the heart of individuation is the idea that each individual has an authentic self that is often buried beneath the layers of external influence. Society, family, culture, and even the individual's own experiences often impose expectations that shape who we think we are. These pressures can create a persona, a version of ourselves that is shaped more by the world around us than by our true nature. According to Jung, this persona is not who we really are. It's a mask we wear to fit into the world, to gain approval, and to meet the expectations of others. Jung's concept of individuation challenges this mask, pushing us to dig deeper into the unconscious mind to discover the authentic self that lies beneath. The unsettling reality, however, is that many people never embark on this journey of self-discovery. They remain trapped in the version of themselves created by their upbringing, societal conditioning, and external pressures. They live according to scripts written by society, scripts that prescribe how they should behave, what they should value, and what they should aspire to. For most, these scripts are enough to get by. They follow the rules, they seek approval, and they conform to societal expectations. They climb the ladder of success, pursue goals that others set for them, and earn validation from external sources like their families, peers, or even social media. Yet, despite all this outward success, something still feels missing. There is a quiet, often unspoken sense that they are not fully alive, that they are not truly living according to their own desires. but instead are living a life dictated by external influences. This sense of dissatisfaction, this feeling that something is missing, is precisely what Jung believed signals that we have not yet begun the process of individuation. It's the inner unrest that comes from not being in alignment with our true selves. When we follow the expectations of others and live according to external validation, we are effectively running from who we really are. We push down our authentic selves, conforming to societal standards in the hope of gaining approval or avoiding conflict. But, according to Jung, life does not truly begin until we stop running from our true nature. The question is, how do we stop running? How do we confront the forces that keep us from discovering who we truly are? In Jung's view, the first step is to confront the unconscious mind. The unconscious is not just a passive part of us, it is a powerful force that shapes our thoughts, behaviors, and even our physical well-being. It holds the keys to our deeper self. But because it operates beneath the surface of our conscious awareness, many people never acknowledge its influence. Instead, they continue living their lives based on the stories they've been told and the expectations placed upon them, all the while ignoring the deeper currents that guide their true desires. One of the most fundamental concepts in Jungian psychology is the idea of the persona. The persona is the face we present to the world, the identity we assume in order to function in society. It's shaped by our interactions with others and the roles we play in life. While the persona serves a necessary social function, it can also become a prison if we become too attached to it. Over time, if we identify too strongly with our persona, we can lose sight of who we truly are underneath. We start to believe that the persona is the entirety of our identity, which leads to a disconnection from the deeper layers of our psyche. For example, think of someone who has spent their entire life striving to meet the expectations of their family. Perhaps their parents wanted them to become a doctor, and they worked hard, made sacrifices, and ultimately became a successful medical professional. On the surface, they may seem like they have it all together: successful career, social approval, and financial security, but deep inside, they may feel unfulfilled. They might never have wanted to be a doctor in the first place, but they've spent so much time conforming to external expectations that they've lost sight of their own desires and passions. In this case, the persona they've built around being a doctor has overshadowed their true self. Similarly, society often expects individuals to behave in certain ways based on gender, race, or social status. These external forces can shape the roles people play in life, leading them to suppress parts of themselves that don't fit within those roles. A man may feel pressure to be stoic, to avoid expressing vulnerability or emotion, because society tells him that real men don't show weakness. As a result, he might suppress his feelings, push down his fears, and never address the parts of himself that could help him grow into a fuller, more authentic person. A woman, on the other hand, might feel the weight of societal expectations to be nurturing and self-sacrificing, which could prevent her from pursuing her own ambitions or expressing her own desires. Jung believed that in order to truly discover who we are, we must break free from the constraints of the persona and confront the parts of ourselves that we've hidden. This is where the concept of the shadow comes into play. The shadow represents the aspects of our personality that we have repressed or denied, those parts of ourselves that don't fit neatly into our socially constructed persona. The shadow contains our fears, our insecurities, and the traits that we consider undesirable. But, according to Jung, the shadow is not something to be feared or rejected. It is a necessary part of who we are, and it contains the potential for growth and transformation. When we fail to acknowledge our shadow, it exerts its influence over us in unconscious ways. For example, someone who is deeply afraid of rejection may go through life seeking approval from others, avoiding conflict, and suppressing their true feelings. This fear of rejection is part of their shadow, an aspect of themselves that they have not fully integrated. When we fail to confront our shadow, it can manifest as self-sabotage, anxiety, or even depression. We may feel stuck, unable to move forward in life, because we are unwilling to face the parts of ourselves that we have hidden away. In Jung's view, true psychological growth happens when we stop avoiding the shadow and begin to integrate it into our conscious life. This process involves acknowledging the parts of ourselves that we've rejected, understanding their origins, and using them as a source of strength. For example, A person who has always feared rejection may, through self-reflection, come to realize that their fear stems from a childhood experience of being ignored or dismissed by a parent. By understanding the root of this fear, they can begin to move beyond it, using their newfound self-awareness to make more authentic choices in their life. Integration of the shadow also means embracing the complexity of who we are. Jung believed that we cannot achieve true individuation by only focusing on the positive parts of ourselves. We must also confront our darker aspects, our flaws, our weaknesses, and the aspects of our personality that we often try to hide. It's in accepting these parts of ourselves that we gain the strength and wisdom needed to live authentically. This doesn't mean that we should indulge in destructive behavior or act in ways that are harmful to others, but rather that we should acknowledge our full range of human experience. Ultimately, the process of individuation is about becoming whole, not by trying to fit into a predefined mold, but by embracing all aspects of ourselves, both light and dark. It's a journey of self-discovery that requires courage, introspection, and a willingness to face the unknown parts of our psyche. The goal is not to create a new identity, but to uncover the one that has always been there beneath the surface of societal expectations, family pressures, and personal fears. Jung's work reminds us that true freedom comes not from conforming to external expectations, but from breaking free of the personas we've constructed and returning to our authentic selves. It's a journey that can be uncomfortable, even painful at times, but it is also the path to a richer, more fulfilling life. For when we stop running from who we are and begin to embrace the fullness of our being, life truly begins. From the moment we are born, society begins shaping us in ways that we are often unaware of. Our names are given to us, and these names hold a significant part in shaping our identity. The roles we play in life are often predetermined by our family, culture, and the society we live in. Early on, we are taught what is acceptable and what is not, what behaviors are rewarded and what behaviors are punished. From an early age, children are told to behave in certain ways to gain acceptance, love, or praise. These teachings are ingrained deeply in our minds, and they can shape our behavior for the rest of our lives. As we grow older, we begin to internalize these expectations, and we learn to suppress parts of ourselves that don't fit into society's mold. This suppression can often be subtle. For example, a child who is naturally curious and loves to ask questions might be told by their parents or teachers to stop asking so many questions and to be more realistic. Alternatively, a child who expresses excitement and joy at something imaginative might be told that they need to stop dreaming and focus on practical matters. Over time, this teaches children that certain emotions or desires are not acceptable, and they learn to hide those parts of themselves. These early experiences when we are told that certain feelings, behaviors, or desires are wrong can lead to the creation of a mask that we wear in the world. This mask, as Carl Jung describes it, is called the persona. The persona is the face we show to the world. It's the identity we construct in order to fit into society, to relate to others, and to gain acceptance. It's the version of ourselves that others see, and it's shaped by societal expectations and external influences. At its core, the persona helps us function in the world. It allows us to navigate relationships, meet social norms, and survive within a larger system. But while the persona is essential for our social existence, it is not who we truly are. The problem with the persona arises when we begin to identify too strongly with it. Over time, as we wear this mask day after day, we start to lose touch with the real, authentic self beneath it. We may begin to believe that the persona is the entirety of who we are. We forget that it's just a role we've been playing in order to fit in, a mask we've put on in order to meet the expectations of others. The longer we wear this mask, the harder it becomes to remember who we really are. The lines between our true self and the persona start to blur, and we may lose sight of our individuality and uniqueness. Take, for example, the pressures that society places on individuals when it comes to career choices. Many people follow a path that is not their own, choosing careers because they are deemed prestigious or because they will earn them approval from their families and peers. A child who is naturally inclined toward art or music might be pushed to become a lawyer or a doctor because those careers are seen as more practical or prestigious. Over time, this individual might find themselves excelling in their career, earning respect and admiration from others, But inside, they feel a sense of emptiness. They might feel trapped in a life that doesn't align with their true passions or desires. But they may have become so identified with the persona of a successful, high-status professional that they can no longer recognize the person they used to be before they began living according to other people's expectations. This is where the danger lies. When we begin to identify too strongly with the persona, we forget that it's not the whole of us. We lose touch with the parts of ourselves that are hidden beneath the surface. The parts that don't fit neatly into the roles we've been given. In our pursuit of external validation, whether it's in the form of success, social approval, or recognition, we become more and more disconnected from our authentic selves. The persona becomes a shell, and the real person inside is lost or hidden. The truth is, everyone wears a persona to some degree. It's part of human nature. We all have to play certain roles in society in order to function effectively. But the trouble arises when we forget that the persona is just a role. We start to believe that it defines us, and we begin to shape our entire lives around it. We prioritize fitting in, pleasing others, and living up to external standards over listening to our own inner voices, which often hold the answers to who we truly are and what we truly want. The consequences of over-identifying with the persona are significant. When we lose touch with our true selves, we can experience a variety of negative psychological effects. For one, we may begin to feel a sense of disconnection from ourselves. We might feel like we're playing a role, going through the motions of life without truly engaging in it. There can also be a sense of unease or anxiety, as if something is missing or out of place. People who are overly attached to their personas often find themselves feeling unfulfilled. Despite external success or validation, this sense of emptiness stems from the fact that, deep down, they are not living according to their true nature. They are not expressing the real, unmasked version of themselves. Additionally, this over-identification with the persona can lead to issues in relationships. If we are so focused on maintaining a certain image, whether it's of being a successful professional, a perfect parent, or an ideal partner, we may not be able to connect with others on a deeper, more authentic level. We may find ourselves suppressing our true feelings, desires, or opinions in order to maintain the facade we've created. This can lead to a sense of isolation. As we fail to show others who we really are, we may feel disconnected from those around us, as if we're living in a world of superficial interactions and performances. Jung's idea of the persona, however, is not meant to suggest that we should abandon our social roles or stop adapting to societal expectations altogether. It's impossible to live without some form of external mask. Society requires us to wear certain roles to function effectively. But Jung warns that it's essential to recognize the difference between the persona and the authentic self. When we can do this, we begin to free ourselves from the limitations that the persona imposes on us. We stop identifying so strongly with the roles we play, and we begin to connect with the deeper aspects of ourselves that have been hidden away for so long. An important step in this process is self-reflection. To begin understanding the difference between the persona and our true self, we must first take the time to reflect on who we are, what we want, and why we do the things we do. It's about examining the roles we've been playing in our lives and asking ourselves whether they align with our authentic desires or if they are simply the result of societal pressures. This can be a difficult and uncomfortable process, as it requires us to confront the parts of ourselves that we may have been ignoring or repressing for years. For instance, someone might look back on their life and realize that they've spent years pursuing a career in finance because it was expected of them by their family. But their true passion has always been in teaching or working with children. When this realization hits, it can be both liberating and challenging. It's liberating because it offers the possibility of change, of pursuing a path that is more aligned with one's true self. But it can also be difficult because it requires dismantling the identity that has been built around the persona, the identity of a successful banker or financial expert. This requires vulnerability and courage, but it also opens up the possibility for growth and transformation. When we begin to peel back the layers of the persona and reconnect with our authentic selves, we also open ourselves up to a deeper sense of fulfillment and happiness. We can begin to live more genuinely, without the pressure to conform or meet external expectations. This doesn't mean that we stop playing roles entirely, but it does mean that we can do so with greater awareness and authenticity. we can engage with the world in a way that is true to who we are, rather than who we think we should be. Jung's concept of the persona is a powerful reminder of the importance of self-awareness and self-acceptance. It teaches us that the masks we wear are not inherently bad, but that they should not define us. We must remember that they are just that, masks. Beneath the mask lies the true self, the person we are at our core. It's only by shedding the illusion of the persona and embracing the real, unmasked self that we can truly begin to live a fulfilling and authentic life. The journey of self-discovery and individuation is not easy, but it is ultimately the path to freedom and personal growth. The idea of the shadow in Carl Jung's psychology is both fascinating and, at times, uncomfortable. It represents the hidden, unconscious aspects of ourselves, the parts we often refuse to acknowledge or face. These can include weaknesses, fears, desires, and impulses that we have learned to suppress over time because they don't align with the image of ourselves that we want to project to the world. While the persona is the face we wear to fit into society and to navigate our social roles, the shadow is the hidden side that exists beneath the surface, often ignored or repressed but nonetheless a critical part of who we are. One of the fundamental ideas that Jung put forward about the shadow is that it does not simply vanish when we choose not to look at it. In fact, the more we avoid or repress it, the more power it gains in our unconscious minds. The shadow doesn't remain dormant in the background of our psyche. It actively influences our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, often without us even realizing it. Its impact is subtle, and it can show up in a variety of ways in our daily lives. We might feel sudden and unexplained anger towards someone, or we might experience jealousy or discomfort in situations that seem to trigger something deep within us. These reactions are often not about the external world but about something within us, the shadow that we have yet to face. Think about a time when you felt intense dislike for someone and couldn't pinpoint exactly why. Maybe it was someone you met at work or a friend of a friend. On the surface, they didn't seem to have done anything wrong, but you couldn't shake the feeling that something about them rubbed you the wrong way. Or perhaps there was a situation where you became inexplicably upset by something someone said or did. You might have even tried to rationalize it, but the feeling stuck with you, creating a discomfort that was difficult to resolve. This feeling, Jung would argue, is a projection of your own shadow. It's not necessarily about the other person but rather something in them that mirrors something you have rejected or suppressed within yourself. For example, let's say you have a strong reaction to someone who is constantly seeking attention. You might feel annoyed, or even disgusted, by their need for validation and the way they go about getting it. Jung's theory suggests that this negative reaction could be because there's a part of you that also craves attention but has suppressed it because you believe it's wrong or inappropriate. Your shadow, in this case, is the part of you that desires validation but has been buried due to societal or personal beliefs. Instead of confronting that part of yourself, you project it onto the other person, causing you to react negatively to their behavior. These kinds of unconscious projections can happen in many aspects of our lives. Have you ever experienced a strong reaction to a certain behavior in someone, only to later discover that this same trait exists within you, albeit in a hidden form? Maybe you despise someone who is overly critical, yet, upon reflection, you realize that you, too, can be excessively self-critical and judgmental. But you've kept that part of yourself hidden because it doesn't fit the version of yourself you want to project to the world. This is the work of the shadow. It lurks in the depths of our psyche, influencing our judgments, reactions, and perceptions, but we often fail to recognize it because it exists in parts of ourselves that we are unwilling to acknowledge. Jung's insight into the shadow was revolutionary because it shifted the focus of psychological growth. Many traditional schools of psychology emphasize the need to eliminate or suppress unwanted traits and behaviors. However, Jung believed that true psychological growth comes not from repressing or eliminating the shadow but from integrating it. In other words, rather than denying these hidden parts of ourselves, we need to confront them, understand them, and learn to incorporate them into our consciousness. The idea isn't to get rid of the shadow but to embrace it as a necessary and valuable part of who we are. The process of integrating the shadow can be difficult because it requires us to confront the aspects of ourselves that we most fear or despise. These are often the traits that we consider weaknesses or imperfections, things that we've been taught to hide or suppress because they don't fit into the ideal version of ourselves that society encourages us to project. For example, you might have a fear of failure, a deep-seated insecurity about not being good enough, or an impulse to act impulsively in certain situations. These are parts of the shadow that we often try to keep hidden because they make us feel vulnerable, imperfect, or inadequate. But when we suppress these aspects of ourselves, we lose touch with important parts of our humanity. Jung argued that the path to healing and self-actualization is through embracing these aspects, not denying them. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean that we give in to every impulse or weakness, but it does mean accepting them and understanding how they affect us. Once we acknowledge these repressed parts of ourselves, we can begin to make conscious decisions about how to engage with them. We can stop being at war with ourselves, and instead, learn to live more harmoniously by accepting the full spectrum of our nature. Consider the example of someone who is terrified of rejection. They might avoid putting themselves in vulnerable situations because they fear being judged or dismissed by others. In the process, they may suppress their own desires or withhold their true feelings, never allowing themselves to fully express who they are. This fear of rejection becomes a part of their shadow. If they are to integrate this aspect, they would need to confront the root of their fear, perhaps a childhood experience of being rejected by a parent or peer, and work through the emotions associated with it. By doing so, they can begin to free themselves from the unconscious influence that this fear has over them. They may still experience moments of vulnerability, but instead of hiding or suppressing these feelings, they can face them head-on and express their authentic selves without the constant fear of judgment. Jung emphasized that the integration of the shadow is not a one-time process but rather an ongoing journey of self-awareness and personal growth. It's about developing the courage to face the parts of ourselves that we would rather avoid. This process often requires deep introspection, as we must examine the aspects of ourselves that are not easy to confront. But by doing so, we open ourselves up to a more authentic and empowered way of living. We stop living in fear of our hidden selves and instead embrace them as integral parts of our whole being. Jung's concept of the shadow also extends beyond the individual. In his work, he suggested that collective shadows exist within societies and cultures. Just as individuals repress certain aspects of themselves, societies repress certain ideas, behaviors, and histories that are uncomfortable to face. These collective shadows can manifest in various ways, such as in the perpetuation of stereotypes, systemic injustices, or cultural taboos. By acknowledging and confronting these collective shadows, societies can begin to heal and grow, much in the same way that individuals can achieve psychological growth by integrating their personal shadows. The idea of integrating the shadow also has profound implications for relationships. In any relationship, whether personal, professional, or societal, we bring our shadows with us. Our hidden fears, insecurities, and unacknowledged desires influence the way we interact with others. Often, we project these unconscious aspects of ourselves onto the people we interact with, just as we project them onto ourselves. By becoming more aware of our shadows, we can begin to improve our relationships by being more authentic and less reactive. We can engage with others in a way that is grounded in self-awareness and emotional maturity, rather than being driven by unconscious fears or unspoken assumptions. The work of integrating the shadow is not easy, but it is transformative. It requires a willingness to confront the uncomfortable, the undesirable, and the repressed parts of ourselves. But as Jung pointed out, the shadow is not something to be feared or avoided. It is a source of personal growth, creativity, and strength. By accepting and embracing our shadows, we allow ourselves to become whole, to live more fully, and to experience life in a more authentic and meaningful way. In conclusion, Jung's concept of the shadow provides a valuable framework for understanding the hidden aspects of ourselves. It teaches us that we cannot achieve true psychological growth by ignoring or repressing the parts of ourselves that we find uncomfortable. Instead, we must integrate the shadow into our conscious awareness, embracing the traits and tendencies that we have repressed in order to live more authentically. By doing so, we unlock a deeper sense of personal power and self-understanding, leading us to a more fulfilling and integrated life. Carl Jung's concept of individuation is a profound psychological journey toward understanding and becoming one's true, authentic self. Unlike the surface-level identities that many of us construct to meet societal expectations, the persona Jung's idea of individuation asks us to dive deep into the layers of our unconscious mind, to confront the darkness as well as the light, and to integrate both parts into a harmonious whole. This integration is not just a journey of self-awareness but also of transformation. It is a process of discovering who we truly are beyond the identities we've adopted in response to external pressures. Individuation requires the courage to face uncomfortable truths, explore forgotten memories, and acknowledge parts of ourselves we would rather ignore or deny. From the moment we are born, we are shaped by our environment, our families, our cultures, and the expectations placed upon us. These forces create the persona, the outward-facing identity that serves to navigate social norms, gain acceptance, and fulfill roles in society. It's the identity we present to the world: the responsible parent, the successful professional, the loving friend, while the persona allows us to function in society and meet basic expectations. It is not the full picture of who we are. The persona is essentially a mask we wear to protect ourselves from vulnerability, to fit in, and to be accepted by others. But behind this mask, beneath the socially constructed layers of our identity, lies the true self, the part of us that is often hidden, repressed, or overlooked. True self-realization, or individuation, as Jung described it, happens when we start to peel away the layers of the persona and uncover what lies beneath. Our true self, he argued, is not a static, easily definable entity. It's a dynamic and evolving part of us that exists deep within the unconscious mind. This true self is filled with suppressed emotions, desires, untapped potential, and even forgotten memories. These are the aspects of our psyche that we tend to overlook because they don't fit neatly into the roles and identities we've constructed for ourselves. It's the part of us that feels a yearning for something deeper, something more meaningful, that we can't quite define. Have you ever felt a sense of yearning for something more real? Something that is beyond the daily routines, the social expectations, and the roles you play? Maybe it's an impulse to change your career, a desire to explore a passion or creative pursuit, or a feeling that your life lacks depth and meaning. This feeling is often hard to articulate, but it is a powerful indication that your unconscious mind is calling you to discover a greater version of yourself. Jung believed that these yearnings are not random or frivolous, they are signs that your true self is attempting to emerge, to integrate the parts of yourself that have been buried or ignored. The unconscious is not something to fear or repress, but something to understand and embrace. The journey of individuation is not an easy one. It requires confronting both the light and the dark sides of ourselves, the parts we are proud of and the parts we have rejected. It asks us to examine the beliefs, fears, and conflicts that we have carried with us throughout our lives. But confronting these parts of ourselves is incredibly difficult because, for many of us, doing so means stepping into the unknown, challenging the very identity we've built over years or even decades. The persona may feel safe, but it is also limiting. The process of individuation demands that we break free from this comfortable but false identity and embrace a more complex and authentic version of ourselves. Let's be honest. How often do we avoid facing ourselves? In a world that demands constant productivity, social engagement, and entertainment, it's easy to keep busy and distract ourselves from deeper, uncomfortable truths. We fill our days with work, social media, Netflix, or other distractions because the idea of sitting alone with our thoughts or confronting our inner conflicts is daunting. It is much easier to keep going through the motions of life than to stop and look inward. But the more we avoid confronting our true selves, the more control the unconscious aspects of our psyche have over us. These repressed parts of ourselves don't simply disappear when we ignore them, they remain hidden but active, influencing our thoughts, behaviors, and emotional responses in unconscious ways. The consequences of avoiding this deeper self-awareness can manifest in many forms. Anxiety, for example, is often a symptom of the unconscious mind trying to get our attention. When we refuse to face certain fears or unresolved conflicts, these feelings can accumulate and manifest as anxiety or stress. Similarly, we may experience patterns of self-sabotage, where we unconsciously undermine our own success or happiness because we are not fully aligned with our authentic desires. This can also show up in our relationships. If we are not in touch with our true selves, We may attract relationships that are unfulfilling or even toxic, as they reflect the parts of ourselves that we have not yet integrated. In the process of individuation, we must confront our fears, but also the limiting beliefs we've adopted throughout our lives. For example, perhaps we were taught as children that we must always be successful or that failure is unacceptable. We may carry this belief into adulthood, sabotaging ourselves when we try to take risks or pursue new opportunities. In such cases, individuation requires that we challenge these beliefs, look at their origins, and replace them with healthier, more realistic perspectives. If we continue to live by these unconscious rules, we are not living authentically, we are merely acting out a script that was written by others. The journey of individuation also calls for a deeper exploration of the unconscious mind, where repressed desires, memories, and feelings are stored. These hidden parts of our psyche are often associated with aspects of ourselves that we consider negative, shameful, or undesirable. For example, we may have suppressed anger or fear from a past trauma, or we may have hidden away parts of ourselves that don't fit into societal expectations, such as a desire for creative expression or yearning for adventure. Jung believed that the path to self-realization involves integrating these shadow aspects of ourselves into our conscious awareness. Rather than rejecting or repressing these parts, we must confront them, understand them, and learn to live with them. Integration of the unconscious doesn't mean giving in to every impulse or desire, but it does mean acknowledging these hidden aspects of our psyche and allowing them to have a place in our lives. This could involve making peace with feelings of anger or grief, learning to express ourselves authentically, or embracing parts of our personality that we may have previously seen as weaknesses. As we integrate these parts, we gain more control over them. Instead of being driven by unconscious fears or desires, we are able to make conscious decisions that are aligned with our true selves. The individuation process is not a quick fix. It is a lifelong journey of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and personal growth. And, as with any journey, it can be full of challenges. At times, it may feel overwhelming to confront the depths of our unconscious, and it may seem easier to go back to the comfort of our personas. But Jung taught us that true growth comes from facing our inner conflicts, not avoiding them. It comes from stepping into the unknown and embracing the complexity of who we are. The more we face ourselves, our fears, our desires, our contradictions, the more we integrate these parts into our conscious life, the more authentic, whole, and self-aware we become. One of the most powerful aspects of individuation is that it leads to greater personal freedom. As we begin to live in alignment with our true selves, we are no longer bound by the external pressures and expectations that once dictated our lives. We are able to make choices based on our own values and desires, not based on what others think we should want or need. This freedom is liberating. It allows us to pursue our passions, express our creativity, and live a life that feels truly authentic and fulfilling. It doesn't mean that the journey is without hardship or difficulty, but it does mean that we are living with a deeper sense of purpose and meaning. The journey of individuation, according to Jung, is not for the faint of heart. It is a process of unraveling the layers of our identity, facing the dark parts of ourselves that we have avoided, and integrating them into a fuller, more complete version of who we are. But it is also the most rewarding journey we can undertake, for it leads to true self-realization, personal power, and a life lived authentically. Through this journey, we come to understand that the true self is not something we need to search for in some distant future. It is already within us, waiting to be discovered and integrated into every aspect of our lives. Carl Jung's exploration of the unconscious mind offers a powerful lens through which to understand ourselves and the world around us. His work provides us with the tools to access the hidden dimensions of our psyche, tools that can guide us toward deeper self-awareness, personal growth, and healing. At the heart of Jung's approach to understanding the unconscious are symbols, dreams, and introspection. These, he believed, were not just random or meaningless phenomena, but potent vehicles through which the unconscious communicates with us, revealing truths that are often hidden beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. By learning to engage with these unconscious messages, we begin to peel back the layers of our psyche and uncover the parts of ourselves that we have long ignored or repressed. Jung believed that the unconscious speaks to us in symbols, images, and ideas that represent deeper, often hidden truths. These symbols are not just arbitrary. They carry meaning that can help us understand the complex and often contradictory nature of our inner world. Symbols are a bridge between the conscious and unconscious mind, offering us glimpses into our unconscious desires, fears, and unresolved conflicts. They often appear in dreams, art, and even in the form of spontaneous creative expression. By learning to interpret and understand these symbols, we can begin to decode the messages they carry and use this newfound knowledge to facilitate personal growth. Dreams, in particular, hold a central place in Jung's theory of the unconscious. For Jung, dreams were not merely random or meaningless occurrences that happened during sleep. Instead, they were powerful messages from the unconscious mind, revealing truths that are hidden from our waking consciousness. Jung believed that our dreams are deeply connected to our waking lives, offering us insights into unresolved conflicts, repressed emotions, and untapped potential. He argued that by paying attention to our dreams and learning to interpret them, we could gain valuable insights into our personal challenges, fears, and desires. For example, imagine having a recurring dream where you are being chased. The dream might feel terrifying, and you might wake up with a sense of anxiety or unease. On the surface, the dream could seem like just a random, unsettling experience. However, Jung would argue that the dream is actually a symbolic representation of something deeper within you. Perhaps the chase represents an aspect of yourself that you are avoiding or running away from, a fear, a hidden desire, or an unresolved conflict. By paying attention to the emotions and imagery in the dream, and by reflecting on what the chase might symbolize, you can begin to uncover the unconscious patterns that are shaping your waking life. In this example, the act of running away from something in the dream might be a metaphor for avoiding difficult emotions or challenges in real life. The fear of being chased could be a manifestation of a deeper fear of failure, rejection, or inadequacy, fears that might have been rooted in childhood experiences or past traumas. By recognizing the connection between the dream and these unconscious fears, you can begin to confront them, integrate them, and ultimately move toward a greater sense of self-awareness and personal empowerment. Jung believed that one of the most powerful ways to access the unconscious was through creative expression. Art, writing, music, and other forms of creative endeavor are not just ways to pass the time or express superficial emotions. They are, for Jung, powerful tools for tapping into the deeper layers of the unconscious mind. When we engage in creative pursuits, we allow ourselves to bypass the defenses of the conscious mind, which often keeps us from acknowledging uncomfortable or repressed aspects of ourselves. Through creativity, we give voice to the parts of ourselves that might otherwise remain hidden, allowing them to surface and be integrated into our conscious awareness. For example, someone who is struggling with feelings of anger might find it difficult to express that anger directly, either because they fear the consequences of doing so or because they have been taught to suppress their emotions. However, through art or writing, they may be able to channel that anger in a way that feels safer and more manageable. The creative process allows them to give form to their emotions, to express what they cannot say directly, and to work through feelings of frustration and resentment in a healthy, constructive way. By doing so, they can begin to understand the root causes of their anger and find ways to address it more effectively in their waking life. This process of using creative expression as a means of accessing the unconscious is not just limited to negative emotions. It can also help us connect with our deeper desires, aspirations, and untapped potential. For instance, someone who has spent years working in a career that doesn't truly fulfill them might turn to painting, writing, or music as a way to express their longing for something more meaningful. Through this creative process, they may discover hidden talents, desires, or dreams that had been suppressed in favor of societal expectations or the roles they were expected to play. By engaging with their creativity, they can begin to uncover the true passions and motivations that lie beneath the surface of their daily lives. The process of self-discovery, according to Jung, requires us to become more aware of the patterns, emotions, and impulses that guide our behavior. This awareness is the first step toward understanding what is really shaping our lives. We begin to question the assumptions, beliefs, and unconscious motivations that have shaped our actions and decisions. For instance, many of us go through life without fully questioning why we do the things we do. We may follow career paths or make life choices based on external expectations, without ever considering what we truly want or need. By beginning to examine these patterns, whether through introspection, creative expression, or dream interpretation, we can start to uncover the deeper truths that lie beneath our surface-level actions. A common example of this process of self-discovery is the fear of rejection. Many people go through life avoiding conflict, suppressing their true selves, or constantly seeking approval from others, all in an effort to avoid being judged or rejected. On the surface, this fear might seem to be about the opinions of others. We might think that we are afraid of what people will say or how they will perceive us. However, Jung would argue that this fear of rejection is often a projection of deeper, unresolved issues from our past. Perhaps it stems from childhood wounds, such as a lack of emotional support or feeling unheard by our parents. Alternatively, it could be rooted in past trauma or negative experiences that have shaped our self-image. By confronting this fear head-on, we can begin to uncover the unconscious beliefs and memories that are driving it. Instead of simply avoiding situations where we might be rejected, we can start to explore where this fear comes from, how it influences our behavior, and what hidden strengths or wisdom it may hold. For example, someone who is afraid of rejection might realize that their fear is not so much about other people's opinions but about their own sense of inadequacy or fear of being vulnerable. Through introspection, they can begin to confront these deeper issues, work through the pain of past experiences, and learn to embrace their true selves without the need for constant external validation. This process of uncovering the unconscious beliefs and patterns that shape our lives is a key part of Jung's idea of individuation, the process of becoming one's true self. Individuation requires us to integrate both the light and the dark aspects of our psyche, to confront our fears, desires, and unconscious motivations, and to bring them into conscious awareness. By doing so, we can achieve greater self-awareness, personal growth, and emotional resilience. The journey toward individuation is not easy. It requires deep introspection, self-exploration, and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths. But as we embark on this journey, we begin to uncover the hidden parts of ourselves, heal old wounds, and embrace the fullness of who we are. Ultimately, Jung's teachings about dreams, symbols, and introspection offer a powerful path towards self-discovery and transformation. By learning to interpret our dreams, engage with our creative expression, and explore the unconscious forces that guide our lives, we can unlock the deeper truths that reside within us. This process allows us to shed the layers of the persona and move toward a more authentic, integrated self. As we begin to understand the patterns, emotions, and impulses that shape our behavior, we gain greater control over our lives and become more aligned with our true selves. The power of introspection and self-awareness is transformative, offering us the opportunity to step into a life that is both meaningful and true to who we are. Carl Jung's concept of archetypes has provided a profound lens through which we can understand the universal patterns of behavior that shape our lives, identities, and the ways we interact with the world. These archetypes, Jung proposed, are deeply ingrained in the collective unconscious, a part of the psyche that is shared by all humans across cultures and time. According to Jung, archetypes are not just abstract concepts but essential forces that influence our thoughts, actions, and desires. They serve as psychological blueprints that help structure and guide our individual and collective experiences. Some of the most significant archetypes include the hero, the shadow, the wise mentor, the Anima and Animus, and many others. These archetypes represent various roles, qualities, and patterns that are universally experienced by humanity. At the core of Jung's theory is the idea that these archetypes are not merely random, individual occurrences, but reflect universal human experiences. Archetypes are expressed through myths, legends, and stories that span cultures and centuries, highlighting their fundamental importance in shaping human consciousness. The hero, for example, is a universal figure in storytelling and myth across cultures. This archetype represents our yearning for purpose, growth, and transformation. The hero's journey is one of overcoming obstacles, facing challenges, and ultimately achieving a higher level of understanding or achievement. This quest often involves leaving the familiar world, embarking on a journey of self-discovery, and confronting trials that test the hero's character. However, Jung emphasized that the hero archetype cannot exist in isolation. The hero's journey is intrinsically linked to another archetype, the shadow. The shadow represents the darker, often repressed aspects of our personality. It is the part of us that contains our fears, weaknesses, and the qualities we are unwilling to confront. Jung believed that transformation occurs not by rejecting or suppressing the shadow but by integrating it into our consciousness. The hero cannot fulfill their potential or undergo true transformation without first confronting the shadow. In fact, the hero's greatest challenge is often not external obstacles but the internal struggles with their own shadow, the parts of themselves that they must face and embrace in order to grow. The relationship between the hero and the shadow is a crucial aspect of Jung's concept of individuation, which is the process of becoming one's true, authentic self. Individuation requires the hero to acknowledge their fears, vulnerabilities, and flaws, those aspects of themselves that they have avoided or denied. This process is not easy, as it often involves confronting parts of ourselves that we would rather keep hidden. For instance, someone who fears failure might be held back from pursuing their dreams because they are terrified of not succeeding. This fear of failure is part of their shadow, the unconscious belief that they are not capable or worthy of success. In the hero's journey, this fear must be confronted and integrated in order for true growth to occur. Think about your own life for a moment. Have you ever felt the desire to achieve something greater, to step into a new role, or to take a bold step forward in your personal or professional life? This longing is a manifestation of the hero archetype within you. The hero is the part of you that seeks transformation and growth. However, as you may have experienced, the path to achieving your goals is often fraught with resistance, fear, self-doubt, procrastination, or even sabotage. This resistance is the shadow at work. The shadow is the part of us that holds us back, that whispers self-limiting beliefs, and that tries to keep us in the safety of the familiar. It may manifest as negative self-talk, avoidance, or the tendency to stay in our comfort zones. The battle between the hero and the shadow takes place inside each of us. The hero wants to grow, to take risks, to achieve, while the shadow clings to the past, to what is known, and to the safety of staying where we are. For example, consider someone who is in a dead-end job that they feel unfulfilled in. They have a passion for photography but have always been afraid to pursue it professionally. The hero within them yearns to step into the world of photography, to take risks and explore their creative talents. However, the shadow holds them back with thoughts like, "You're not good enough. What if you fail?" Or, "This isn't practical." These doubts are part of the shadow, the unconscious forces that tell us we are not worthy of pursuing our dreams. For this person to move forward, they must confront these fears, integrate the shadow, and take action despite the resistance. The hero's journey involves facing these obstacles head-on and continuing to move forward, no matter how difficult it seems. Jung believed that when we ignore or repress the shadow, it has a way of surfacing in unconscious ways. It may manifest as anxiety, depression, or negative patterns of behavior that seem out of our control. For instance, someone who has suppressed their anger for years might find themselves erupting in a fit of rage over a relatively minor issue. This is the shadow at work in emotional energy that has been ignored or repressed for too long, bubbling up unexpectedly. The key to true transformation, according to Jung, is not to deny the shadow but to embrace it. By acknowledging and accepting the shadow, we gain greater self-awareness and can begin to use its energy in a positive way. The process of integrating the shadow is not just about recognizing negative traits or fears, it also involves acknowledging our hidden strengths. Often, the parts of ourselves that we repress contain qualities that, if properly channeled, can lead to personal power and growth. For example, someone who has repressed their assertiveness or leadership qualities might struggle in situations where they need to take charge. By embracing these qualities, they can step into a more confident and empowered version of themselves. The shadow holds both our greatest weaknesses and our greatest potential, and integrating these aspects allows us to become whole. While the hero archetype is central to the process of individuation, it is also important to recognize that other archetypes play a role in our personal development. The wise mentor, for example, is another powerful archetype that helps guide the hero on their journey. The wise mentor represents the part of us that seeks wisdom, guidance, and understanding. This archetype often appears in the form of a teacher, a spiritual guide, or an inner voice of wisdom that provides insight during difficult times. The relationship between the hero and the wise mentor is crucial in the hero's journey. The wise mentor helps the hero navigate challenges, offering support and guidance when the journey seems uncertain or overwhelming. This archetype can also represent our own inner wisdom, our ability to tap into our higher selves and make decisions that align with our true path. The wise mentor archetype is often seen in stories and myths as a figure who has already undergone their own journey of self-discovery. They serve as a model for the hero, showing them what is possible if they are willing to confront their fears and embrace their true selves. In many ways, the wise mentor is a reflection of the mature, integrated self that the hero can become once they have confronted their shadow and completed their journey. By connecting with this inner wisdom, the hero can gain clarity and perspective, making it easier to navigate the obstacles that arise on the path to self-realization. Another important archetype is the Anima and Animus, which represent the feminine and masculine energies within each person. Regardless of gender, the Anima is the feminine aspect of a man's psyche, while the Animus is the masculine aspect of a woman's psyche. These archetypes represent qualities such as intuition, creativity, emotional depth Anima and logic, strength, and assertiveness Animus. The integration of the Anima and Animus is vital for achieving balance and wholeness. By embracing both the feminine and masculine aspects within ourselves, we can cultivate a more balanced, harmonious life. For example, a man who rejects his Anima might struggle with expressing his emotions or being in touch with his intuitive, creative side. Similarly, a woman who rejects her Animus might feel disconnected from her own strength and assertiveness. The journey of individuation and the integration of archetypes is not an easy path. It requires us to confront the many layers of our unconscious mind, to face the shadows within, and to embrace the full spectrum of who we are. The hero must confront the shadow, the wise mentor must offer guidance, and the Anima and Animus must find balance. But the rewards of this journey are profound. By integrating the archetypes within us, we become more whole, more authentic, and more capable of living a life that is true to who we really are. The hero's journey is one of transformation, not just through external challenges, but through the deep, internal work of self-discovery and integration. And as we embrace the archetypes within us, we unlock our full potential and step into a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling. Carl Jung's concept of the Anima and Animus represents a deeply profound aspect of the human experience, illustrating how within each of us, regardless of gender, lies both feminine and masculine energies. These energies are not tied to biological sex, but rather are universal psychological forces that shape how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. The Anima and Animus exist in all people as symbolic representations of our inner feminine and masculine qualities. The Anima, present within men, embodies the feminine qualities of intuition, emotion, and creativity, while the Animus, found within women, represents the masculine traits of logic, structure, and assertiveness. For Jung, the Anima and Animus are key to understanding the complexity of our personalities and the conflicts we may face in life. These energies are not merely abstract concepts, they are deeply embedded in our psyche, influencing how we interact with others and how we navigate the world. The Anima and Animus are archetypes, much like the hero or the shadow, that shape our experiences and our sense of identity. However, what makes these energies so significant is their potential to guide us toward greater self-awareness and personal growth when we learn to integrate them, rather than reject or suppress them. The Anima, the feminine side within men, is a vital force that connects men to their emotions, their intuition, and their creative impulses. The Anima represents the softer, nurturing aspects of the human experience that are often undervalued in a society that prizes rationality, strength, and productivity. In many cultures, men are socialized to suppress their emotional expression and embrace traits such as stoicism and independence. This suppression can lead to a disconnection from the Anima, causing men to feel alienated from their own feelings, creativity, and emotional depth. A man who rejects or neglects his Anima might struggle with expressing vulnerability, preferring instead to present an image of strength and self-reliance. He may experience difficulty in relationships, as he avoids intimacy and emotional openness. believing that showing vulnerability is a sign of weakness. This internal conflict can manifest in various ways, such as emotional repression, difficulties with forming deep connections, or even struggles with creativity. For instance, a man might have a deep passion for music or painting but avoid pursuing these interests because they are considered feminine pursuits. His rejection of the anima, and the qualities it represents, may prevent him from fully expressing himself and experiencing the richness of life that creativity and emotional connection can provide. On the other hand, when the anima is embraced and integrated, a man becomes more in touch with his inner emotional landscape, his intuition, and his creative expression. He learns to balance his rationality with sensitivity, structure with spontaneity, and strength with vulnerability. This balance allows him to navigate the world with greater emotional intelligence and depth. A man who integrates his anima might be more empathetic in relationships, more attuned to his own emotional needs, and more open to experiencing the full spectrum of human emotions. Similarly, the animus, the masculine side within women, represents qualities such as logic, assertiveness, and action. In many cultures, women have historically been expected to embody nurturing, passive, and emotional roles, while the masculine traits of logic, structure, and leadership have been reserved for men. As a result, many women have been socialized to suppress their animus, often in favor of embracing more traditionally feminine qualities. This suppression can lead to feelings of inadequacy, frustration, or self-doubt when women find it difficult to assert themselves or make decisions confidently. A woman who rejects her animus might feel passive or hesitant in situations where assertiveness or decisiveness is required. She may struggle with setting boundaries, advocating for herself, or taking action in her professional or personal life. For example, a woman who works in a highly competitive field might feel overwhelmed by the pressure to assert herself. Even though she has the skills and potential to succeed, her rejection of the animus might cause her to doubt her own capabilities, holding her back from fully embracing her power and potential. However, when the animus is embraced and integrated, a woman can tap into her inner strength, assertiveness, and clarity of thought. By connecting with the masculine energies within her, she learns to balance emotion with logic, intuition with structure, and receptiveness with action. A woman who has integrated her animus might be more confident in her decision-making, more assertive in advocating for herself, and more proactive in pursuing her goals. She no longer feels limited by societal expectations but is free to embrace all aspects of herself, both feminine and masculine. The key to achieving balance between the anima and animus lies in integration. Jung believed that the journey toward individuation, becoming our most authentic and whole selves, requires us to integrate both the feminine and masculine energies within us. This integration is not about suppressing one aspect in favor of the other but rather about embracing both sides of our nature. By doing so, we gain access to a greater source of personal strength, wisdom, and emotional resilience. The more we allow ourselves to express both the anima and animus, the more we become balanced individuals who can navigate the world with clarity and authenticity. For example, consider a woman who has spent much of her life focusing on the nurturing, emotional aspects of her personality. She may excel in her role as a caretaker, providing support and comfort to those around her. However, she may struggle with taking decisive action in her own life or standing up for herself in situations where assertiveness is required. By embracing the animus, she can begin to develop the qualities of leadership, confidence, and independence that may have been repressed. She might find herself taking on new challenges at work, asserting her needs in relationships, or pursuing personal goals with greater determination. Similarly, a man who has been conditioned to suppress his emotional side might find it difficult to connect with others on a deeper level. He may prioritize logic and action, neglecting the emotional and intuitive aspects of his nature. By embracing his anima, he can develop a deeper understanding of his emotions and relationships, allowing him to form more meaningful connections with others. He might find himself more open to expressing vulnerability, more in touch with his creativity, and more receptive to the emotions of those around him. The process of integrating the anima and animus is not always easy, as it requires us to confront deeply ingrained beliefs and societal expectations about gender roles. Many people struggle with the idea of embracing traits that are considered feminine or masculine. Depending on their gender, However, Jung believed that true growth and self-realization come from embracing all aspects of our being. Regardless of societal labels, the more we allow ourselves to explore both the feminine and masculine forces within us, the more we come to understand our full potential and the complexity of our inner selves. It's important to note that integrating the Anima and Animus is not a one-time task, but rather an ongoing process of self-exploration and growth. As we continue to evolve, our relationship with these energies may shift and change. There may be times when we need to lean more into our masculine traits, and other times when we need to embrace the feminine. This fluidity is part of the beauty of Jung's concept, recognizing that we are not limited by rigid definitions of masculinity and femininity, but that we are dynamic beings capable of expressing all aspects of our nature. The integration of the Anima and Animus also has profound implications for our relationships with others. When we embrace both the feminine and masculine energies within ourselves, we become more balanced and whole individuals. This balance allows us to connect with others in a deeper and more authentic way, as we are no longer limited by stereotypes or expectations about how we should behave based on our gender. For example, in a romantic relationship, the more balanced we are internally, the less we rely on our partner to fulfill certain roles or expectations. Instead, we can engage with them as whole individuals, appreciating the strengths they bring to the relationship while also honoring our own unique qualities. In conclusion, Jung's ideas about the Anima and Animus offer a powerful framework for understanding the dynamic interplay of feminine and masculine energies within each of us. By embracing both aspects of our nature, we tap into a greater source of strength, wisdom, and emotional resilience. This integration allows us to live more authentically, embrace our full potential, and build deeper, more meaningful relationships with others. It is through this process of integration that we can achieve true balance, self-awareness, and personal growth, leading to a more fulfilling and empowered life. Carl Jung, along with many other great thinkers, proposed that one of the greatest obstacles we face in discovering our true selves is the illusion of the fixed self. In our daily lives, we often operate under the assumption that our identity is a static, permanent construct, something that defines who we are and how we interact with the world. We rely on labels and categories that help us make sense of ourselves. I am a doctor. I am a mother. I am shy. Or, I am an introvert. These identities feel secure because they create a sense of stability and predictability. They help us navigate the world, interact with others, and determine our roles in society. However, according to Jung and other influential philosophers and psychologists, these identities are not the full picture of who we are. In fact, they are merely limited representations of the self, masks that obscure our true, ever-evolving nature. Jung argued that the self is not a fixed or rigid entity. Instead, it is fluid and ever-changing, an ongoing process of growth, transformation, and self-discovery. This idea challenges the conventional way we think about identity, the belief that we are who we've always been or that we are bound by the identities and roles we've constructed for ourselves. We often think of ourselves as finite beings with a clear sense of who we are. But Jung believed that this is an illusion. The truth is that we are vast, interconnected beings with infinite potential, capable of becoming much more than the limited identities we cling to. One of the primary forces behind the illusion of the fixed self is the ego. The ego is the part of our consciousness that creates the sense of I and me. It's what helps us differentiate ourselves from others and gives us a sense of individuality. On one level, the ego is necessary for survival. It allows us to navigate the world, make decisions, and protect our sense of self. However, the ego also creates an artificial boundary between ourselves and the rest of the world. It fosters the belief that we are separate from others and from the universe. And it encourages us to identify with our thoughts, our social roles, and our experiences as though they define us entirely. In many ways, the ego limits our understanding of who we truly are. It convinces us that our sense of self is permanent and unchanging, when in reality, it is just a small fraction of the vast, interconnected being that we truly are. This attachment to the ego, to our fixed identities, is what often keeps us stuck in life, preventing us from exploring the full range of our potential. We become too comfortable in the roles we've adopted, afraid to venture beyond them because doing so would mean confronting the unknown, the part of ourselves that is yet to be discovered. To break free from this illusion of the fixed self, we must first let go of the rigid identities and attachments that the ego has created. This doesn't mean that we abandon our sense of self altogether, but rather that we loosen our grip on the roles and labels that confine us. It means recognizing that we are not limited to the identities we have constructed over time. We are not just the sum of our past experiences, our social roles, or our accomplishments. Instead, we are constantly evolving, constantly changing, and capable of becoming something greater than what we have known ourselves to be. One of the most profound ways to begin breaking free from the illusion of the fixed self is through self-reflection and introspection. When we take the time to examine our thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors, we begin to uncover the ways in which the ego has shaped our identity. For example, think about how much of your identity is defined by your job, your family, or your social status. These external factors are important, but they are not the full picture of who you are. When we identify too strongly with our roles, we lose sight of the deeper, more fluid aspects of our being. We become trapped in the narrative of who we should be, based on societal expectations, family traditions, or past experiences. Take, for instance, someone who has spent their entire life defining themselves by their job title. Perhaps they are a lawyer, and they take great pride in the prestige and security that come with their profession. However, this person may feel a deep yearning for something more meaningful, something beyond the confines of their legal career. They might have a passion for painting, writing, or traveling, but they have suppressed these desires because they don't fit the identity of the successful lawyer they have built for themselves. In this case, the person's ego has become so attached to their professional identity that they are unable to see beyond it. They are stuck in the illusion that their worth is defined by their job title, rather than by the fullness of who they are as a person. Breaking free from this fixed identity requires courage and self-awareness. It means challenging the belief that we are bound by the roles we play in society. It means confronting the fear of uncertainty and embracing the unknown parts of ourselves. For the person who is attached to their identity as a lawyer, breaking free might involve allowing themselves to explore their artistic side, to take time off from work to travel, or to engage in creative pursuits that have nothing to do with their career. This process of exploration and self-discovery can be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. By loosening the grip of the ego and allowing ourselves to experience new facets of life, we begin to reconnect with the vast potential that lies within us. Another important aspect of breaking free from the illusion of the fixed self is learning to embrace change and uncertainty. The ego thrives on stability and predictability. It wants to feel safe and in control. But the truth is that life is inherently uncertain, and change is inevitable. When we hold on too tightly to a fixed sense of self, we resist change and become fearful of stepping into the unknown. This fear of change can manifest in various ways: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. But when we learn to embrace the fluidity of life and the ever-changing nature of the self, we open ourselves up to new possibilities and experiences. For example, consider someone who has spent many years in a relationship that no longer serves them. They might feel stuck in the relationship because they identify with the role of the committed partner. They might fear that leaving the relationship would mean giving up their identity as a loving spouse or partner. And they may be terrified of the uncertainty that comes with change. But by embracing the idea that the self is fluid and ever-changing, this person can begin to understand that their worth is not defined by their role in the relationship. They can break free from the illusion of the fixed self and make choices that align with their true desires, even if those choices involve difficult changes. Jung's idea that the self is fluid and ever-changing is also related to the concept of individuation, the process of becoming our true, authentic selves. Individuation requires us to step beyond the limitations of the ego and the fixed identities we have created for ourselves. It requires us to embrace the unknown parts of our psyche, to confront the unconscious forces that shape our behavior, and to integrate both the light and the dark aspects of our personality. The more we engage in this process of self-discovery, the more we begin to understand that our true self is not confined to the labels we've placed on ourselves. It is a vast, interconnected being with infinite potential, constantly evolving. constantly growing, and always in the process of becoming. One of the greatest challenges we face in breaking free from the illusion of the fixed self is the fear of losing our identity. The ego has a way of convincing us that without our labels, roles, and attachments, we will cease to exist. But the truth is that when we let go of the rigid identities we have created, we don't lose ourselves, we discover who we truly are. We tap into a greater source of strength, creativity, and resilience. We become more authentic, more connected to the present moment, and more open to the infinite possibilities that life has to offer. As we let go of the illusion of the fixed self, we begin to experience a sense of freedom and expansion. We are no longer confined by the limitations of our ego or the identities we have clung to. We begin to embrace the unknown and step into the fullness of who we are. We are not defined by our past, our job title, our family history, or our social roles. Instead, we are defined by our capacity for growth, transformation, and self-realization, and in doing so, we unlock our infinite potential, becoming more aligned with our true selves and with the greater flow of life. Breaking free from the illusion of the fixed self is not an easy task. It requires self-awareness, courage, and a willingness to embrace change and uncertainty. But as we move beyond the confines of the ego and open ourselves up to the vastness of who we truly are, we step into a life that is richer, more authentic, and more fulfilling. We are no longer limited by the identities we have constructed, but rather, we are free to become the fullest expression of ourselves, constantly evolving and growing in ways we never thought possible. The journey of self-discovery is not an event that happens in a single moment or through a singular act of insight. It is an ongoing process, a continuous journey of transformation that unfolds over the course of a lifetime. So often, we think of finding ourselves as a destination, a place we eventually reach after we've made the right choices, achieved the right successes, or accumulated the right experiences. We think that once we reach that elusive point of self-understanding, everything will make sense, and we will be at peace with who we are. But the truth, as Carl Jung and many other philosophers have pointed out, is that this journey of transformation is not about arriving at a final destination. Instead, it is about embracing the ongoing process of shedding layers of conditioning, fear, and self-doubt, and allowing a more authentic, complete version of yourself to emerge. This process is deeply personal and, at times, uncomfortable. It requires us to face parts of ourselves that we may have long neglected or suppressed parts of us that we fear or don't fully understand. These might be feelings, desires, or experiences that we've pushed aside because they don't fit into the identity we've constructed over time. But these aspects of ourselves are not to be feared, they are integral pieces of our whole being. The journey of transformation requires us to reawaken these parts, to bring them into our conscious awareness, and to integrate them into the full expression of who we are. Consider the example of someone who has spent most of their life living according to societal expectations, working a job they don't love because it provides financial security, or staying in a relationship because it's familiar and comfortable, even though they feel emotionally unfulfilled. These individuals might experience a growing sense of dissatisfaction or yearning for something more. But this feeling isn't just about a specific situation or external condition, it's an inner call for transformation. It is the inner self-seeking expression, wanting to break free from the shackles of fear, self-doubt, and external pressures. Often, it's only when we step outside of these expectations and begin to question who we truly are and what we truly desire that we can begin the process of transformation. The key to finding yourself is not about forcing a change or trying to become someone new. It's about peeling back the layers of conditioning that have been imposed on us by society, family, and our own limiting beliefs. It's about reclaiming the parts of ourselves that we have buried out of fear or shame. It's about realizing that the version of you that you have been seeking has always been there, hidden beneath these layers, waiting to be remembered. Think of a person who has spent most of their life following a conventional path. Maybe they studied hard in school, got a well-paying job, and followed the steps that society said were necessary to be successful. However, despite outward success, they feel empty inside, as if something is missing. The reason for this is that they have been following a prescribed path, one that didn't align with their true desires or passions, their true self, the part of them that is creative, adventurous, or spiritually connected has been overshadowed by the demands of external expectations. The process of finding themselves, in this case, would require them to rediscover these lost or suppressed aspects of who they are. They might feel drawn to a new career, a new lifestyle, or even a creative pursuit that they had long neglected. This is a journey of transformation, a reclaiming of the authentic self that was always there, hidden beneath the surface. There is a powerful revelation that comes with this process. You were never truly lost. The self you've been seeking, the person you've longed to become, is not some distant ideal that requires extraordinary feats of achievement. It's already within you, waiting to be acknowledged, embraced, and allowed to emerge. You've always had the potential for growth, creativity, and self-actualization, but it's only by stripping away the layers of fear, doubt, and societal expectations that you can access it. This realization is liberating because it means that the search for self is not something that needs to be pursued externally. It is an internal journey. The more we shed the false identities and roles that we have adopted to fit into the world, the more we begin to reconnect with the true essence of who we are. This is not a journey that requires us to become someone else or achieve something outside of ourselves. It is a journey of remembering, of rediscovering the parts of us that have been overlooked or ignored, and integrating them into our conscious experience. Take, for example, someone who has always been interested in writing but has never pursued it because they were told it was not practical or realistic. Throughout their life, they have kept this passion buried, instead focusing on practical pursuits that were more in line with what society expected of them. However, as they get older, they begin to feel a pull to write, to express themselves in a way they never have before. This desire has always been there, waiting to be acknowledged. The person isn't looking to reinvent themselves or become someone else. Instead, they are tapping into a part of themselves that has always been there waiting to be expressed. They may face doubts and fears along the way, but ultimately, they are discovering their true self, shedding the limitations that kept them from pursuing their passion. The beauty of this journey is that it's not limited to any one stage of life. Transformation can happen at any moment. We don't have to wait for some grand revelation or a perfect set of circumstances to start living authentically. Every day presents an opportunity to question who we are, what we truly want, and what has been holding us back. It's about becoming more aware of the choices we are making and how they align with our inner values and desires. As we become more attuned to our true selves, we naturally begin to make choices that reflect who we really are, rather than who we think we should be. Moreover, the process of self-discovery and transformation is not about perfection or achieving a fixed version of ourselves. The journey is ongoing, fluid, and dynamic. It is a lifelong process of growth, learning, and adapting. We are always evolving, always discovering new aspects of ourselves and the world around us. The key is not to see this transformation as a one-time event or a destination, but as an ongoing journey that unfolds over time. There is no final arrival on the path of self-discovery, only continuous growth and deepening understanding. At a societal level, the journey of transformation can also have profound effects. As more individuals embrace their true selves and stop conforming to external expectations, we begin to see a more authentic, compassionate, and inclusive world emerge. The world shifts from one driven by rigid social structures and superficial identities to one where people are empowered to express their full potential and live in alignment with their deepest values. This shift isn't just individual, it is collective. When we break free from the illusion of the fixed self and embrace the fluidity of our true nature, we can create a world that fosters growth, acceptance, and connection. Now, the choice is yours. Will you continue living as a fragment of who you are? Or will you step forward into the unknown, embracing the infinite possibilities that await? The choice to embrace transformation, to discover your true self, and to live authentically is a deeply personal one. But once you make the decision to begin this journey, you open up a world of possibilities, one where you can tap into your full potential, express your creativity, and experience life in a more meaningful and fulfilling way. Life doesn't truly begin until you find yourself. And now you know the way. It's not about chasing some distant ideal or reaching a fixed endpoint. It's about becoming who you are meant to be in each moment, embracing all that you are, all that you have been, and all that you have the potential to become. Your true self is waiting, And the journey of transformation is the path that leads you back to it. The journey of finding ourselves is, above all, a deeply personal and transformative experience. It's not just about finding answers to who we are. It's about peeling away the layers that have been built up over time, the layers formed by societal expectations, family influences, and our own fear-driven beliefs. This journey is one that takes courage, as it requires us to confront the parts of ourselves we've long ignored or suppressed. Those aspects that make us uncomfortable, or that we believe do not fit the ideal image we've constructed for ourselves. The reality, though, is that the path to becoming who we truly are is one that demands we face those very hidden parts, understand them, and ultimately integrate them. Only when we do this can we unlock the potential to live an authentic and free life. Self-discovery, in this context, is not an easy or immediate process. It's not something that can be achieved by following a simple set of instructions or by looking at a few self-help books. The journey to finding ourselves is ongoing and ever-evolving, and it often involves moments of discomfort and doubt. This is because discovering who we truly are requires us to dig deep into the unconscious parts of our psyche, to bring light to the shadowed corners of our lives, and to face those aspects of ourselves that we may have been avoiding for years. It is tempting to believe that the persona we project to the world is our true self. After all, the persona is often a reflection of how we want others to see us. It is the mask we wear in society to navigate the complex roles we are expected to play. It is the identity we construct to fit in, to meet the expectations of family, friends, co-workers, or society at large. We often define ourselves by our roles, by our jobs, by our titles, by the approval we get from others. In this sense, the persona can feel like it is our true self because it is the version of us that is most visible and tangible. Yet, as we move through life, we can start to feel that something is missing, that the persona is only a partial reflection of who we are, a mask that doesn't quite match the depth of our inner selves. This is where the journey of self-discovery becomes essential. To find who we truly are, we must look beyond the persona. The persona might help us navigate the world, but it doesn't capture the full spectrum of our being. We are not just the roles we play. The real self, the self that exists beyond societal expectations and personal limitations, is far more expansive and fluid than we realize. It includes all of the parts we've repressed or neglected, as well as those parts of us we are still in the process of discovering. This involves confronting the shadow within us. The shadow is often made up of the qualities we reject or suppress. Those parts of our personality that we believe are unacceptable, unworthy, or weak. These could be fears, insecurities, or desires we've hidden because they conflict with the image we want to project to the world. For example, someone might suppress their anger or frustration because they were taught that anger is inappropriate or weak. Or someone might hide their vulnerability, thinking that it's a sign of failure or inadequacy. These repressed aspects of the self don't just disappear because we ignore them. Instead, they continue to shape our thoughts, behaviors, and reactions in ways we don't always understand. They influence how we engage with others, how we feel about ourselves, and how we approach life's challenges. It is often only by confronting these parts, by acknowledging the fears, doubts, and contradictions that exist within us, that we can start to live authentically. Rather than rejecting these shadow aspects, we must learn to integrate them. The process of integration means accepting these parts of ourselves and understanding that they don't define us in a negative way. Instead, they are part of our full humanity, and when we embrace them, we allow ourselves to be more whole and more connected to who we truly are. This integration doesn't mean indulging in negative behaviors or allowing our shadow aspects to dominate our lives. It means recognizing them, accepting them as part of our psychological makeup, and learning to respond to them in healthier ways. For example, instead of suppressing anger, we can learn to express it constructively, by setting boundaries or by communicating our frustrations in a way that respects both our feelings and the feelings of others. Similarly, instead of hiding vulnerability, we can embrace it as a source of strength, allowing us to form deeper, more meaningful connections with others. The more we integrate these hidden parts of ourselves, the more authentic and free we become. We begin to shed the fear that we are not enough or that we must be perfect to be accepted. We stop striving for approval from external sources and begin to trust in our own inner wisdom and guidance. This authenticity gives us a sense of liberation, as we no longer feel the need to conform to other people's expectations or to live up to a false image of perfection. We realize that we are complete as we are, that our imperfections are not weaknesses but part of the richness of who we are. This is the true power of self-discovery, the ability to embrace and integrate all parts of ourselves. When we do this, we unlock a deeper sense of personal freedom. We are no longer defined by external roles or judgments. We are not limited by the personas we have created or the false narratives we have been telling ourselves. Instead, we are free to live in alignment with our true values, desires, and purpose. We become empowered to take action in the world that is aligned with who we really are, not who we think we should be. In addition to integrating the shadow, the process of self-discovery involves exploring and embracing the aspects of ourselves that we might have neglected or taken for granted. We may not even realize that we have the potential for creativity, leadership, or compassion, simply because we have been conditioned to believe that only certain traits are valuable or acceptable. Through self-reflection, journaling, creative expression, or simply being open to new experiences, we can begin to uncover these hidden talents and strengths. This is another crucial aspect of living authentically, allowing ourselves to explore the full range of our potential and finding ways to express it in our daily lives. Take, for example, someone who has spent most of their life working in a corporate job that doesn't ignite their passion. They may feel unfulfilled, but they continue down the same path because it's familiar and stable. However, deep down, they might have a creative streak or love for art that they have never fully explored. Over time, the desire to express their creativity may become more pronounced. If they have the courage to embrace this part of themselves, to explore the unknown, they might find that their sense of fulfillment and purpose is no longer tied to their corporate job, but to something far deeper and more aligned with their true self. The key to growth is integrating all parts of who we are, even those we find difficult to accept. It requires vulnerability, courage, and a willingness to let go of the false identities that have kept us safe but have also kept us from growing. The more we embrace who we truly are, the more freedom we experience. The act of letting go of the false self that we have spent so much energy maintaining is not an act of losing ourselves, but rather an act of discovering our authentic selves. We do not become less, we become more. We tap into our infinite potential and live from a place of truth and integrity. The ultimate power to live a life true to who we are lies within each of us. It's a power that comes from understanding and embracing both the light and the shadow of who we are. It's the realization that we are not fixed beings, trapped in rigid roles or limited by the identities we've constructed. We are dynamic, evolving individuals with the capacity for growth, transformation, and self-realization. And when we take the journey to fully embrace this truth, we step into the fullness of who we are, living with authenticity, courage, and freedom. It all begins with the willingness to look beyond the persona, the mask we wear for the world, and beyond the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we have been avoiding. Only then can we uncover the vastness of who we truly are and live a life that is authentic, aligned with our deepest values, and free from the constraints of fear and self-doubt. This is the path to becoming the fullest version of ourselves, and it is a journey that can lead to profound transformation and fulfillment. Well, there you have it. You are not just the person you've become, but a vast, interconnected being with infinite potential. The journey to discovering your true self is not just about understanding who you are now, but about embracing the unknown, breaking free from the illusion of the fixed self, and welcoming all the possibilities that lie ahead. This is the process of individuation, a journey that requires shedding the layers of the persona, confronting the shadow, and ultimately integrating the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. And once you do that, you'll find yourself more authentic, free, and truly aligned with your deepest desires and values. But remember, this is just the beginning. As Carl Jung said, we are always in the process of becoming, and that journey doesn't stop once we think we've found our true selves. It's an ongoing process, and with each step, we uncover more, grow more, and learn more about our boundless potential. So, what now? The challenge is in your hands. Are you ready to embrace your true self? To break free from the constraints of the persona you've created? To confront the shadow and integrate all parts of yourself? If the answer is yes, then it's time to take action. If you've enjoyed today's video and found it thought-provoking, Don't forget to like and share it with your friends who could benefit from this life-changing knowledge. Hit subscribe if you haven't already to stay updated on all of our future content. And if this video touched you in some way, please consider supporting us with a super thanks. It means the world to us and helps us keep creating the kind of content that makes a difference. Remember, the journey of self-discovery is a lifelong one. So, let's continue it together. I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait to see what the next chapter holds for all of us. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.